It's Chiefs Are Alive. Today I'll be telling you about why I tattooed my throat, and I'll also be sharing with you my secret for how I overcome pain, how to overcome discomfort, and I'll also be answering some of the most common questions I get asked about my tattoo. So stay tuned to the end if you want to hear about those. I have all these reasons why I did it. Those reasons are more important than being treated a little bit worse than I was already being treated. You know what I mean? Common sense tells us that people seek pleasure and avoid pain, but that's not always the case. Various activities involve pain, including running, hot massages, tattoos, piercings, and even BDSM. And now when I get tattoos, it actually feels good. It's really hard to explain. Like the more it hurts, you know, I can tell that it hurts, but it feels good. Like I just get this rush of endorphins or whatever. You know, you just have to overcome it in your mind. You know, people are always complaining about all these sensations, but they're not necessarily bad. You know, it's just information. And, you know, there's no such thing, I don't think there's anything as bad information except for false information, but this isn't false information. It depends on what you do with the information. You have to overcome that pain in order to be able to achieve that. Understand that pain is just an electrical message that your body is sending to your brain. You can interpret it however you want. It could be good, it could be bad. Whatever you decide. So I'm gonna start by naming all of the reasons why I tattooed my throat. Reason number one is to draw attention away from my acne scars. I had cystic acne. They've gone down a lot, but I used to have a long scar that went down the side of my cheek, and this one was like a Y that went down my cheek. When I was 18 or 19, I just got out of jail. I did 3 months in jail, I did 3 months in a treatment program, and this was the longest period I had sober since I started drinking when I was 15. Now I understand what happened was that since I'm Native American, the sugars in the alcohol, my body was unable to break them down. And so what happened was when I was younger and I started drinking, the next morning I would wake up and I'd have like little zits and stuff on my face, and eventually that stopped happening. I just didn't pay any attention to it really. And when I got sober, I developed cystic acne. So for those of you who don't know, cystic acne is pretty much what it sounds like. It's basically acne that's like cysts, you know. It's like I had fat, puffy, like pus-filled cysts, like just these nasty, it was disgusting. It was one of the hardest things I ever gone through in my life. It just totally ruined my self-confidence. I already was pretty insecure. I would compensate for my insecurities by projecting overconfidence or cockiness. You know, I was pretty cocky and I was pretty full of myself. You know, I did that to compensate for actually how insecure I actually was. When I got the cystic acne, it totally humbled me. At the time, I didn't want to go out in public. You know, I just felt it was just disgusting, and I didn't want people to see it. And you know, I felt like everywhere I did go when I went out in public, everybody was just looking at me, and they were. You know, it's impossible not to notice, you know, these fat things on your face. That, along with troubles in the relationship that I was in, stress from the case that I had just caught, the medications that I got put on. So I went to IHS and they put me on antibiotics. They're only supposed to put me on for a few days. I went back, and then the doctor, she was like, oh, well, today's my last day, so I'm just gonna prescribe you for like 3 months worth. And so I was on this antibiotic, but I didn't know that it was amphetamine based, basically like related to meth. You know, it's like an upper, and so it just killed my appetite. You're supposed to take it before every meal, and so I take it before every meal and it just killed my appetite. I wouldn't want to eat, and so I ended up losing like 50 to 70 pounds in a few months, and I just wasn't eating anything. I was stressed out. My acne didn't really get any better. Even after I stopped taking the antibiotics, I didn't have an appetite. Like nothing sounded good to me anymore, and even my favorite foods didn't sound good anymore. Eventually, my mom took me to a dermatologist, and he told me, he's the one that gave me all this information about it being an amphetamine base and not supposed to be on it for more than like 4 to 5 days. Then he put me on, I don't know if you remember, but all those commercials for Accutane, and then all the lawsuits that happened because of young people committing suicide. I believe it was like some kind of hormonal blocker or something like that, something to do with your hormones, and it caused, you know, people to have suicidal thoughts and to commit suicide. And so families were suing this company. They discontinued Accutane, but they created a generic version, and they put me on that generic version. And in order to get on it, I had to sign a waiver saying that if I committed suicide, that my family couldn't sue them or whatever. And it did end up messing with my emotional and mental state quite drastically. I was having troubles with the relationship that I was in, and I ended up having suicidal thoughts and attempting suicide a few times. So it was just a really difficult time in my life, but it was very humbling, and I'm very appreciate that I went through it because it made me who I am today. Even after I was off the medications and my acne eventually went away, I stopped taking the medication and I started using cannabis, and I changed my diet. I stopped eating dairy. I used cannabis to help with the inflammation and also to regain my appetite, because like I said, none of my favorite foods sounded good. Like, nothing sounded good to me. I used cannabis to help with my appetite and start eating again, and also really helped with the stress and the psychological and emotional effects that I had gone through from taking the medication. And that really, I think that's really what helped me out a lot. Quitting dairy, changing my diet, eating a lot cleaner. So those are the things that really helped me to get over the cystic acne. But even once it had gone away, I still have, I mean, you can still tell, I still have these scars, and they used to be a lot worse than they are now. They've gone down significantly. That was like the first thing. Whenever I'd meet somebody new, or I'd see someone I hadn't seen in a long time, the first thing that they'd ask me, or one of the first things they would ask me, you know, after like, oh, how you doing or whatever, they'd be like, what happened to your face? You know, or do you mind me asking you, like, what happened to your face or whatever? And so I used to play this little game. I used to ask people, well, what do you think happened? And I'd heard all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah, you know, like, people, you know, try to make you feel better. People were like, oh, nobody even notices, it's just in your head. When consistently the first thing that people notice about you or ask you about is the scars on your face, everybody's noticing. I've been wanting to get my throat tattooed for a really long time. I have a lot of friends who are tattoo artists, and I have a lot of friends who have a lot of tattoos. My father was also a tattoo artist, and he had a lot of tattoos. So tattoos are something that I've always wanted to get. You know, I figured I would work my way up to getting my throat done. This was actually the first visible tattoo that I've gotten. The logic behind getting it was to draw attention away from my acne scars, because I was tired of people just always constantly asking me about my acne scars. Now that I have the tattoo, I don't think anybody has asked me about my acne scars. I can't remember the last time that someone asked me about it. So that was successful. People now ask me about my tattoo. The most questions I get are about my tattoo. No one ever asked me about my acne scars, and I feel like people don't notice it anymore. And that's what I wanted. People criticize me a lot because I don't have tattoos on my arms. You know, that's okay. I didn't get it to follow some trend. I got this when I think I was 22 or 23. It was 2 sessions. I think each were about 4 hours. It wasn't to show off or try to be cool or whatever. It was a self-image thing, you know, trying to, you know, a lot of people will get tattoos to cover up like scars or things like that. And that's what I did, you know, and I've gotten a lot of tattoos. They're just not visible. You know, I have tattoos. So this is the first tattoo I got when I was 18. It says Chief in my last name. And, you know, I got them in some pretty painful spots, like this one here on my side. And the majority of my tattoos I've gotten done by my friends, and I have a lot of tattoos on my legs. Right here is actually, I got this before I got any tattoos when I was 17. This is a coat hanger brand. It says CO. They were keloid scars. They used to be a lot bigger. They've gone down significantly. Now they're almost flat. They used to be real thick and puffy. I got that done when I was 17. I got 3 cigarette burns on the side of my neck around the same time. I was like binge drinking vodka for like a week straight. You know, I was just really looking for acceptance. I was trying to fit in, be a part of this group of friends, people that I looked up to, and they're still my really close friends today. But you know, I went about it in the wrong way. You know, I definitely regret doing it. That's probably like one of the, you know, regrets that I do have is getting the brand and the cigarette burns. And also the tattoo did serve to cover up the cigarette burns on my neck too, because those were super noticeable, and people thought it was like some kind of disease or something like that. It looked nasty, you know. They both got infected, and it was super painful. It took about 3 or 4 months for them to heal. After going through that, when I was 17, you know, getting tattoos was fairly, in comparison, it wasn't as painful as going through that. Reason number 2 is that it's a representation of my first name is Joaquin, which is thunder, thunder beings, thunder, lightning, Thunderbird, and Lakota. This was a family name. This was a name that's been passed down from my father, my grandfather, and my great-grandfather. In the genealogy records, my great-grandfather's name is listed under Thunderbird. Originally, the idea that I had was a hawk. My artist, he's my really good friend, but I asked him to add some thunderbolts on the side. This is a representation of who I am, my name, and my family. It has a lot of meaning and significance to me. You know, I wanted to work up to it, but I was tired of getting all this attention for my acne scars. You know, it's just something that you don't want to be constantly reminded of. It's just a really painful memory for me. Every time someone would mention it, it kind of brings up all those old memories. You know, I wanted something that people would notice about me that wasn't, I don't know how to explain that really. Got it done in California when I was still living in California. I was born and raised in California, and I moved to South Dakota about 3 years ago. There's a lot of Lakotas out here, so whenever I introduce myself to people, they get it right away. They're like, oh, Wakian, you know, like Thunder Beings, Thunderbird, they get it. They're like, oh, okay. They understand why I got the tattoo. That's pretty cool. Reason number 3 is facing incarceration, possibility of being in prison, going to prison. You know, I've been on probation, felony probation since I was 15 for graffiti. I think I was 18 or 19 in 2010. It was the end of 2010. I caught a huge case. I was charged with 12 felonies, and I was convicted of 3 felonies, and along with that conviction, I received a 4-year, 8-month suspended prison sentence and a $45,000 restitution that I had to pay. That wasn't my first time being incarcerated. I've been incarcerated multiple times, and a lot of the guys that I've been incarcerated with, you know, they have a lot of tattoos, and I had quite a few tattoos at the time, but none of them were visible. And I was thinking, you know, I had a lot of friends that had gone to prison, been sent to prison for graffiti, and you know, in California that's the way it was at the time. In my mind, if I, you know, screw up, I'm gonna do 4 years, 8 months in prison. So part of, you know, the prison culture is having a lot of tattoos. Tattoos represent a lot of things. They're very symbolic. At the root of it, tattoos show people that you can endure pain, that you can endure physical pain. A lot of the guys that I've been locked up with, they had tattoos all over their face, on their heads, you know, dome pieces. They had their throats tattooed all over their arms, everywhere. You know, I figured if I'm gonna go to prison, I considered it very likely that I was gonna go to prison, that I would want to have a visible tattoo and in a spot that seems, you know, like a pretty tough spot. Even still to this day, you know, prison is even though I'm not doing anything illegal and I'm not on probation anymore, going to prison is still very you know, it's reality for me. For those of you who don't know, the United States has the highest number of incarcerated people in the world. In South Dakota, I just read an article that South Dakota is leading the nation in incarceration rates. And on top of that, Native Americans, statistically, we are the most incarcerated people in this country. And especially in South Dakota, we are disproportionately represented in the jails and the prisons. We only make up a small percentage of the population, but we represent over half, maybe. We'll look that up. In South Dakota, the people who are arrested and admitted to jail are disproportionately Native. Although Natives make up 8.7% of South Dakota's population, there are roughly half of those booked into jail and in the state. Racial disparities in incarceration rates exist nationwide. Black people are jailed at more than 4 times the rate of white people, but disparities in South Dakota are far greater. According to data from the Vera Institute of Justice, Natives between the ages of 15 and 64 are incarcerated at 10 times the rate of white people in South Dakota. People are wrongfully convicted all the time. The criminal justice system isn't about justice. It's about the numbers and about money. So it's very likely that I could end up in prison even though I'm not doing anything illegal, just because of, you know, statistically the odds are far higher. There's tons of cases where people have been found innocent, you know, decades later after they've been in prison for a very long time. And the fact that I'm Native American and I have a criminal history, even though it's only graffiti, I still have a good likelihood of going to prison. It's still a reality that I have to live with to this day. That's another good reason why I got it, was thinking that, you know, oh, I could probably go to prison. And, you know, my dad went to prison, lots of friends that have been to prison. The last reason is that I'm a creative person, I'm an artist. You know, I never really wanted to get like a typical 9-to-5 job. I never wanted to work in a corporate setting or work in like an office or like in a cubicle or something like that. I wanted to prevent myself from caving in, trying to get one of those jobs, you know. I wanted to make myself use my creativity and my personality in order to find a way in this world. I didn't want to just sell out or, you know, take the easy route. You know, that's something that people ask me all the time. Are you concerned about getting a job? Well, at the time I did have a job. I had a very secure job. Huge company, was #1 in the world at what it did. And still to this day, you know, I have a really good job. I've gotten multiple jobs. And the limiting factor for getting a job wasn't my tattoo, actually. It was the felony convictions. So when I moved to South Dakota, you know, I was applying for all these jobs and I have an excellent work history. I had superb references. The owner of the company wrote me tons of reference letters. She even wrote me a reference letter that got me out of jail one time. That was so good because, you know, she was explaining what kind of person I am, who I am. She said that I was one of the best employees that has ever worked at the company. So the judge let me out, and I ended up getting locked up again a few months later when I went back to court. But it was still really cool. And so, you know, when I moved to South Dakota, we went to visit, and there was job opportunities everywhere. Everywhere we went, they had like hiring signs. Everywhere we went, every store we went, they were hiring. And so we're like, oh yeah, it'll be easy for us to get jobs. But when we moved out here, we found out that that was not the case. You know, filled out tons of applications, you know, sent in my resume and all that stuff to all these different places and didn't get any callbacks. But I ended up getting the job at Harbor Freight, and I worked there for a little while until I got hired at the Natural Foods Co-op. And then I ended up getting a job offers. An owner of a cafe offered me a job because he recognized me. I was helping him out at the co-op, and he recognized me from my other job. I was working 2 jobs at the time, and he said he remembered me because of my excellent customer service. He offered me a job. He said, if you ever want a job, just come in and I'll hire you. So I was like, all right, cool. So I quit my other job, or I went in, did a really informal interview, just sat down and talked to him and one of the managers, and yeah, they had me fill out all the paperwork and everything like that, and I got hired. So I quit my other job, and I was working both of those jobs that's another story anyways. But the felonies, people don't realize the system's designed to keep people incarcerated, or to keep people returning to prison, because they try to do better, try to find a better way, try to get jobs and stuff, but no one wants to hire them, because as soon as you check, have you been convicted of a felony, they just toss your application out the window. So that's why a lot of people, you know, turn back to doing crime. And most of the time it's not violent crime, it's like selling drugs. That's the best opportunity they have, because a lot of times they have families that they have to take care of, and they have loved ones. And then after being incarcerated, you have all of these court fines and fees and lawyer fees and restitution and all the stuff that you have to pay, and if you don't pay it, you're gonna go back to jail. And so it's like, you don't want to go back to jail, or you don't want to go back to prison, no one wants to hire you, they turn back to crime. And that's happened to a lot of my friends, and it's really tempting to do that, and I totally understand why people do it. But I mean, it's designed for you to fail. There's not any real rehabilitation, you know, there's no corrections. They call them correctional facilities, but they're not really there to correct your behavior. You're just sitting there. A lot of times you're becoming a better criminal. You know, I went in there as a graffiti writer, as a graffiti artist, if you want to call it that, and I learned a lot about crime. You know, I'm not a criminal, but I learned all kinds. You know, it's like a university for criminals. You know, there's not a lot of programs set up to help people, you know, reintegrate into society and become functioning members of society, or contributing to the betterment of society. A lot of times, you know, you're just in there and they're just making money off you because you're a head in a bed. You know, they have beds to fill, they have contracts to fill with these corporations or companies. Anyways, you know, I've got jobs that I really love, and I get to be creative and do art, and I get paid to do art. You know, there were times when I had a lot of financial difficulty or whatever, and, you know, I would have caved in, I would have taken one of those jobs. I mean, this and the felonies, you know, that prevented me from doing that. But, you know, if you are concerned about getting a job, tattoos are way more acceptable today. They're not so worried about people wearing suit and ties and the exterior look. They care more about the work that they're putting in and what they have to offer. The landscape is changing. You know, I would consider that if you're gonna get a throat tattoo or a visible tattoo, I would consider that if you're trying to go into a field. Like, I wanted to be a paramedic. One of the limiting factors is that you can't really have any visible tattoos. And it's understandable, because, you know, if they're an elderly person, they're from an older generation, that they're not, that wasn't socially acceptable. So if you're going to a job or profession like joining the military, or, you know, becoming a first responder, something like that, I would consider it. I would think about it. And a lot of people are like, oh, like, aren't you worried about people like treating you like suspicious, like you're some kind of shady character? The truth is that people have treated me like that my entire life. I've dealt with racism since I was a child. As long as I can remember, I've dealt with racism. So I was always, you know, when something went missing, I was at a friend's house or at a party and something turned up missing, guess who they blamed? And I was the only person of color there. Guess who they blamed? Me. You know, like, I never stole anything from anybody. You know, I was never into stealing from people. When I used to write graffiti, I used to steal my graffiti supplies. I used to steal spray paint and my markers and that kind of stuff, but I never stole anything else. I maybe stole food when I was homeless and I was living on the streets, and I couldn't get any food, I would steal food or whatever. But for the most part, I never stole from a person, I stole from a corporation. I always felt morally wrong about stealing from people, but whenever something like that would happen, I would be the first one they blame. Come on, bro, I know you took it, just give it to me, you know, I won't be mad, just give it back to me. And then they end up finding it later, and you know, it's really fucked up, you know, that people already treat me suspiciously. Even when I was a child, I'd go into a store and I'd get followed around by the employees because the way I look, because of my ethnicity. People would follow me around and have these preconceived notions, racially profile me, and think that I'm gonna steal because I'm a minority. And a lot of times the kids that I grew up with when I was in high school and stuff like that, a lot of the white kids I grew up with, they were kleptomaniacs. They just stole for fun. They didn't steal out of necessity. They would just go in stores and steal for fun because no one would ever look at them twice. And it was easy for them. They could just go in there and fill up their backpacks, fill up their jackets, fill up their pockets, all kinds of stuff, and they would walk out. And no one ever thinks that they're the ones that are stealing, but they are. And they don't need to steal, but they steal for fun. One example was when I was in junior high school. There's this group of kids, they used to go into the 7-Eleven near our junior high school, and they used to steal candy and all kinds of stuff. They used to try, it was like a game for them to see how much stuff they could come out of the store with. One time they invited our friend who was African American, they got him to go with them. Guess what happened? He stole like one thing, they come out, they had all this stuff, and they're like walking out, and the clerk grabs him because they're only focused on him because of the color of his skin. They weren't paying attention to the other kids, even though they're the ones that have been going in there every single day stealing tons of stuff. They singled him out. They called the police. His parents had to come pick him up or whatever, but it was messed up. Countless examples of growing up being treated suspiciously every time I walk in a store and get followed around by the clerks. And so, you know, getting a tattoo is not going to change that. Okay, they might treat me a little bit more suspicious or whatever. I was already getting treated that way anyways, so why not? You know, I have all these reasons why I did it, and so those reasons are more important than being treated a little bit worse than I was already being treated. You know what I mean? I don't really care. People are gonna treat me bad. People treat me shitty my whole life. What my ethnicity is. It's crazy. The number one question that I get about my tattoo is, did that hurt? And yeah, it hurt. It definitely wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be. You know, I really thought it was gonna be it was just gonna be like this awful pain. The parts that were the most uncomfortable was like my Adam's apple. You could just feel it, like the whole, once it's hitting your throat, your trachea, you could just feel it like vibrating your whole, you could just like hear it in your head. And then the other parts that were really tough were like the thunderbolts on the side and up here. Well, it definitely wasn't as bad as I thought. But I also have a trick that I developed that's helped me to overcome uncomfortable sensations or feelings. I have a basic understanding of how the body works. Basically, your feelings, your physical feelings, are basically just electrical signals that your body is sending to your brain. It's just information to send to your brain. You know, like you're hungry, you're cold, you're hot, so that you're able to help your body to regulate, you know, so you don't overheat, you don't get hyper or hypothermia. You feed yourself so you don't, you know, starve to death. You know, if you're thirsty, you get dehydrated. And pain, you know, pain is a really important signal that your body is sending to your brain. You know, pain is telling your body that something's wrong. You need to pay attention to this and take care of it so that you can treat it and help it to heal and to recover from it. But if you're doing it intentionally, your mind controls your body. The way that I'm able to do the cold exposure training and able to take cold showers, and the way that I've been able to get tattoos, is to actually rewire the way that my brain interprets the signals, the electrical messages that my body is sending to my brain. So like if you have young children, you've ever been around young children when there's, you know, just toddlers or something like that, and they fall down and they scrape their knee or whatever, they don't immediately just start crying unless they've already learned that it's bad. A lot of times they'll look up at the adult to see what their reaction is, to see how they should react. So if you as a parent or you as the adult freak out, oh my gosh, are you okay? And you know, they understand that it's bad and they'll start crying or whatever. But if you just laugh it off and be like, haha, like dang, that was sick, or a good one, you know, they'll just laugh it off and they'll be fine. You make that association based upon other people's reactions to it. So people are, oh, it's cold, here, get a blanket, or oh, it's hot. You know, people are always complaining about all these sensations, but they're not necessarily bad. You know, it's just information. And, you know, there's no such thing, I don't think there's anything as bad information except for false information, but this isn't false information. It depends on what you do with the information. It's important because, you know, you can die from hypo or hypothermia or from pain. If you don't treat something, it gets infected, you get sepsis and you could die. But if you're doing it intentionally, then you should be able to override that. You should be able to control your body. You should be able to override your body's processes. And so there is a pain-pleasure connection. So what I do when I'm taking cold showers or when I'm getting tattoos, I don't really have to do it anymore, but when I first started doing it, when I was getting tattoos, you know, the trick is that you want to relax as much as possible. So you want to focus on your breathing. You also want to be like well rested. You want to have eaten something and be well hydrated, so that you're just your body's in a healthy state, able to recover and able to manage it, because it can feel a lot worse when you're dehydrated or you're tired. When I got my throat tattoo, I was actually super sleep deprived. I'd stayed up all night, taking a train ride to San Jose, and my train was delayed, so I ended up staying up waiting for it to get there, and it didn't come to like 3 or 4 in the morning. I think, like, yeah, the sun was coming up. It was like 4 or 5 in the morning. This train got there, and once I got on the train, I was afraid of falling asleep on the train because I didn't want to miss my stop. And so I stayed up the whole way, made it all the way to San Jose, then met up with my friend and we hung out, and then my friend came pick me up and brought me to a studio, and we busted out the tattoo. And thankfully he took me to go get something to eat first. So the trick is just tell yourself, it feels good, 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 it feels good. So I'd hop in the cold shower, hit you, I just focus on my breathing, and in my head it feels good, 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 it feels good. Now it actually feels really good. I actually crave cold showers. I actually really look forward to taking cold showers. Now, I used to dread it. It took me forever to do it and to work up to it, but you know, once you do it, you realize it's not that bad. You know, you just have to overcome it in your mind. You know, you have these preconceived notions about it being bad, it's bad, whatever. It's not bad, it's just information. If you really want something, like I really wanted to get the benefits of taking cold showers, I also really wanted to get tattoos. And so when I get tattoos, you know, same thing, just breathe. Just try to relax as much as possible. The more you relax, the less painful it's gonna be. If you try to clench and you tighten up and you just flex your whole body, it's actually gonna be more painful. It's gonna be a lot more painful. You're gonna feel it a lot more. It also makes it a lot more difficult for the tattoo artist. They're working with your skin, and your skin's very movable and flexible, and so they have to be able to move it and to feel it. And if you're flexed up, it's gonna be a lot harder. You know, your skin tightens up. It's gonna be a lot harder for them to do their work. It's gonna take longer, and they're more likely to make mistakes. You start flexing and tensing up, you might start shaking, and you know, then you're gonna have squiggly lines, and then you're gonna try to blame it on the artist, but really it's your fault. Anyways, so the best thing to do is relax, try to focus on your breathing, and I don't know, just try to do what I did. I just, feels good, it feels good, it feels good, it feels good, over and over in my head, and just relax and focus on my breathing. And now when I get tattoos, it actually feels good. Like I get like a rush of good feeling. It's like a high I get from it. It's really hard to explain. Like the more it hurts, you know, I can tell that it hurts, but it feels good. Like I just get this rush of endorphins or whatever. It just feels good. I don't know. So I could tell you more about it. I'm not an expert on the subject. So there's a pain-pleasure connection, and I'm going to read you an article from the BBC about it. Common sense tells us that people seek pleasure and avoid pain, but that's not always the case. Various activities involve pain, including running, hot massages, tattoos, piercings, and even BDSM. Whoa. The link between pleasure and pain is deeply rooted in our biology. For a start, all pain causes the central nervous system to release endorphins, proteins which act to block pain and work in a similar way to opiates such as morphine, to induce feelings of euphoria. So that's what I'm talking about, the feeling that I get when it's really painful. It feels really good. The relationship will come as no surprise to those who run. Bursts of intense exertion release lactic acid, a byproduct of the breakdown of glucose when oxygen is in short supply. The acid irritates the pain receptors in the muscles, and these communicate their plight to the brain through electrical messages sent through the spinal cord. The signals are interpreted as a burning sensation in the legs, usually causing the runner to slow down or stop. That is, until the nervous system's control center, the hippocampus, kicks in. This seahorse-shaped portion of the brain responds to pain signals by ordering the production of the body's own narcotics, endorphins. The proteins bind to opioid receptors in the brain and prevent the release of chemicals involving the transmission of pain signals. This helps block pain, but endorphins go further, stimulating the brain's limbic and prefrontal regions, the same areas activated by passionate love affairs and music. It's a post-pain rush similar to the high of morphine or heroin, which also bind to the brain's opioid receptors. Meanwhile, the pain of an intense exercise also causes a spike in another of the body's painkillers, anandamide, known as the bliss chemical. It binds to the cannabinoid receptors in the brain to block pain signals and induce the warm, fuzzy pleasure emulated by cannabis or marijuana, which binds to the same receptors. Adrenaline, also produced in response to pain, adds to the excitement by raising the athlete's heart rate. Anyways, so there you have it. There is a pain pleasure connection, and if you can find that and you can unlock that, then pain is no longer uncomfortable for you, and so you'll be able to have control of your body. Our body is capable of amazing things, and if you're able to control your mind, then you should be able to control your body. So that's the trick. If you want to get tattoos, or you want to overcome, lift some heavy weights, you want to build muscle, you want to run a marathon, you have to overcome that pain in order to be able to achieve that. Understand that pain is just an electrical message that your body is sending to your brain. You can interpret it however you want. It could be good, it could be bad. Whatever you decide. What people say, discomfort is bad. We live in such a comfortable society. Most people live in their lives in this little bubble of comfort, and they never step outside of their comfort zone. And discomfort is the only place where growth happens. You're never going to grow inside of your comfort zone. There's zero growth that happens inside of your comfort zone. So in order to grow, in order to progress, you're going to have to endure the pain. You have to endure the discomfort. And that's the beauty about life. And when you do it, you realize it's not that bad. It's not as bad as you thought it was. A lot of times, especially me, I make it out way worse than it's gonna be in my head, which is sometimes beneficial. Like with this tattoo, I thought it was gonna be way worse than it was, and when it actually happened, I was like, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be. It's still painful, it still hurts, but it's not as bad as I thought. That's my trick. That's my secret for being able to overcome pain and discomfort. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I have to say. Went on for quite a while. If you stuck around this long, I really appreciate you watching my video. Please check out my other videos. I have a lot of videos I want to make, and I have a lot of ideas. I'm trying to get on a more strict schedule. Today I turned 27 years old. For 27, my goal is to become a lot more disciplined and to stay on the path of discipline. That starts by waking up early, exercising, eating right, trying to cut out all the bad shit in my life, and trying to just be healthier. If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos, please subscribe to my channel. And go check out my other videos. I've got quite a few other videos, from stuff like painting graffiti to doing sign work for my job, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, just different forms of art, exercise, nutrition. I really do believe that life is an art. It's an art form that takes skill to navigate your way through and to make a way. And I just think it's beautiful. That's why my channel is called Chief's Art of Life. I'm just trying to share, what I'm going through, and hopefully, because I've gotten a lot out of watching other people's videos. YouTube videos have really helped me to improve my life, and so I really want to pay it forward and try to help other people, share what I know, share what I go through, and hopefully it can help some of you. And look back on it, and just for myself too, to look back on it and see how far I've come, or to see how much progress I've made, or just to look back and reminisce on those times. I really appreciate you watching it, so stay tuned for more videos. I hope that you have an excellent day wherever you're at. Oh yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them below, and yeah, just shoot me any questions that you have. I'd be happy to answer them, and maybe I'll make a video about it. So yeah, thanks for watching. Peace.